Jangan goyang, shake.
Last year, and within just a handful of laps, the track was absolutely waterlogged. So very strange tropical conditions here, of course, and it's terribly unpredictable. But most other teams are concerned that it will rain at some point in the race, James.
Well, it's a far larger crowd here this weekend than we've seen before at Sepang. Obviously Alex Young in the field has a hand in that, but I must say there's a tremendous amount of fans of this man here, Juan Montoya. A lot of Colombian flags being waved. It's a very long way from Colombia to Sepang. Great to see the crowds here though, and a very colourful spectacle they are too. Traditional costumes, lots of dancing, lots of dragon dancing and that kind of thing, and a lot of fans being waved in the crowd as people try and keep themselves cool against this intense heat. The drivers will lose about nearly a gallon of fluids, body fluids, during the course of this race. So if you think it's hard for the crowds, look at the sweat on Rubens Barrichello's face, and he hasn't actually done anything yet. A couple of reconnaissance laps, and just does it not get in your eyes and make them sting when you're static?
It does indeed. In fact, you're just watching Nick Heidfeld there wiping the sweat away from his face. It does indeed, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just walk out of any air-conditioned room here and you're instantly into those kind of problems, let alone sitting in 4 layers of fireproof clothing, boots, gloves, balaclava and helmet, and it's just a recipe, as you said, for losing a significant amount of fluid. They'll be preloading, even before they came to Malaysia, preloading fluid all through free practice and qualifying, and especially in the 4-hour gap that we've had since the morning warm-up.
Quite a lot of the mechanics also preloading a lot of fluid, but not necessarily of the right kind. A fantastic place to go out in the evening, Kuala Lumpur, lots of entertainments, but there's a race around the corner, not just the hottest race of the year, also the longest, 194 miles the race distance, which is 2 miles longer than the average, as we set off on the parade lap. Schumacher on the right, Montoya on the left. It's the last chance to get the systems working, to get the car up to speed, get the temperatures right before we go green.
And a big problem here, if they're on the line 30 to 40 seconds as per normal, enormous heat build-up in the engines, and it is difficult for the team. They've packed the side pods and radiators with as much dry ice as they can get in. One unusual thing I saw, Michael Schumacher stepped out of his car on the grid and they dropped it off the jacks just after he'd departed, which is highly unusual. Somebody got their coordination wrong for the manual front and rear jacks that they use. Luckily, the 4 tyres were still on the car.
Field making their way round then. Langkawi curve, some beautiful corners on this racetrack, a real mixture of fast, medium and slow, 2 very long straights as well, and a difficult track to set the car up for. Only one really racing line, you were saying yesterday, Martin. You've got to find it or you're in trouble. Yes,
and unusually, despite all the money that's spent and all the development that's happened over the winter months, nobody's any faster than last year. We think this surface is gradually, year by year, getting baked. Remember, it was a new track in 1999. And look at the surface change here in turn 9. That corner actually fell away about 18 months ago. It was kept quite quiet, but they had to re-establish that corner. But I think generally it's accepted that this surface is giving up a bit of its early grip, a bit of its newness, if you like. And we've seen so many drivers spinning off the racetrack, haven't we? And ironically, it's been all the main contenders, really.
Absolutely, a lot of the back markers keeping it honest, keeping it straight, doing the laps. The main contenders just pushing the limit, looking for that little bit extra. We're riding on board here with Juan Montoya. That's Michael Schumacher, the pole sitter up front, his 4th consecutive pole here in Malaysia, and Montoya really the man who has to take the fight to Schumacher today. So coming round to take up their positions on the starting grid. Amazing tension here in Sepang.
There is a lot of tension. I noticed it more on the grid today. I think it's because we're anticipating a close race, and there really was an excitement and a tension down there that I didn't feel the same in Melbourne. They're lighting up their rear tyres. They have to switch off the traction control to do that. Strictly speaking, they're not allowed to practice starts, but as long as they just keep rolling, it's not perceived as a practice start, but they'll be nailing the throttle, trying to get some temperature in those rear tyres. But of course, very little they can do about front tyre temperature and brake temperature. There's just not enough speed and they're not moving enough mass around to really build up those temperatures, and that's why we see people getting together down there in turn 1. Ferrari first and second in the warm-up this morning. Williams apparently nowhere, but I'm sure that's because they were running and testing a heavier fuel load. Everybody then peeling from their right-hand side of the track to keep their tyres as clean as possible as they take up their grid slot.
Michael Schumacher's been sitting there now for a good 30-35 seconds. So has Juan Montoya. The temperatures in the engine and air brakes, everything will be getting red hot. They need the start to be any moment now. And guess what, guys? It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And it's now. Schumacher away. Well, look at that BAR. Schumacher cuts across, chops in front of Montoya. Brutal chop. And look at Barrichello down the outside. Barrichello goes for Montoya, but Montoya is keeping his foot in it. Is he going to go around the outside of Schumacher? Yes, he is. The two McLarens are up well as well. Contact. Schumacher's lost his front wing. Barrichello takes the lead, and Montoya has to take evasive action. But that's Schumacher's wing lying in the racetrack.
Yes, indeed. Let's see how Schumacher can cope with that. It looked a fairly big piece, didn't it? And Schumacher will be understeering like crazy if he's lost half his front wing. And yes, indeed. Look, Montoya got going again. He went around the outside and he's going for it immediately, locking his brakes into 4. We think Michael Schumacher will be trailing with a broken front wing. That'll take a dozen seconds and a pit stop to put that right.
Yes, you can see Schumacher there. He's cutting his way on the inside there of that corner. He's about, where is he in fact? He's down in 5th place. Barrichello leading. Ralf Schumacher 2nd. Raikkonen up to 3rd. Coulthard 4th. A great start for the McLaren duo. Michael Schumacher down to 5th. Heidfeld 6th. Button 7th. Fisichella 8th. Trulli 9th. And Salo in the Toyota in 10th place. And look at this. That's Michael Schumacher with no front wing attacking the Jordan.
Yeah, and Schumacher went, he's obviously way lower than 5th now. He'll have virtually zero front grip. We can see the Ferrari mechanics getting ready with fresh tyres. That'll be automatic in case he's got a puncture. And Barrichello with an armful of opposite lock out in the lead. And Ferrari waiting for their number 1 driver and a new nose. It should just take the nose.
Barrichello also with a great opportunity. He spoke after Australia of a missed opportunity. On pole position that day, of course involved in the big accident at the start with Ralf Schumacher, but today he has a great chance.
And Montoya back in 11th place at the moment as he went through the second sector. We saw him regaining ground. Did he get a puncture? Obviously contact. Schumacher darting into the pit lane in the background. So Barrichello from Ralf Schumacher, Raikkonen, Coulthard. There's 4 seconds between 1st and 4th, and there then is Michael Schumacher.
Schumacher in for a nose cone. Any other damage though? Watch the mechanics. They'll be checking to see if any damage to the front suspension, anything which will make the car hard to drive for the rest of the race.
And they have to lift it manually because normally the jack works on the front wing itself. No front wing. You have to get your mechanics to manhandle it up in the air. And there's the normal 12 and a bit seconds, and an arrow's in the pits too, looking like it's parked up.
An explosive start then, once again, to the second Grand Prix of the 2002 season. There goes Michael Schumacher, now down in 21st place. That was Heinz-Harald Frenzen's arrows you could see in the pit lane. Whatever the problem is, he's not been able to get to his own garage as Schumacher resumes in 21st place.
What's your betting he can still win the race?
I don't think so. No, I think this Rubens, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher up to 2nd place now, Raikkonen 3rd and Coulthard 4th, and you can't bet against Montoya as well, but this is going to be a terrific scrap. We often talk, Martin, about what the World Championship would look like if Michael Schumacher retired today. Well, we might find out who would be supreme on a day like today.
Well, I don't count him out yet. I mean, he's not a full lap behind, and we know he is supreme around this racetrack. He's been on pole 4 consecutive times. He's won the race 3 times, and of course he had to give one away to Eddie Irvine. And don't write Michael Schumacher. It's going to be thrilling to see him coming back through the field. Barrichello over the line then, and he leads by 2.3 seconds now, and the 2 McLarens a further couple of seconds behind Ralf Schumacher. They're 4th and 5th. Heidfeld in very close company with Coulthard. Remember, I said at the beginning, the midfielders who are 2 stopping, I think, could put the McLarens under a lot of pressure in the early stages of these races. And Jenson Button is 6th, also in close company with Coulthard in the McLaren.
Good news from the pits that Takuma Sato in the 2nd Jordan has also had to come in for a nose cone. So that Jordan obviously involved in some kind of close contact in the early stages. We're waiting for the computer to work itself through. We can see exactly what the margin is between the race leader. Both Jordans in the pits. There's Fisichella, big problem.
And he's shot past his pit, and they'll have to pull him back. I wonder and it looks like they came together. And look, one's lost its front wing, one's lost its rear wing. They obviously had a squabble into the pits, and Fisichella pushed straight through the garage zone. And not a good St Patrick's Day for the Jordan team, no doubt about that. But putting a front wing on is a whole bunch easier than putting a rear wing on. Rear wing connected to the gearbox and strongly connected. Front wing just with 4 clips.
There aren't too many rules that exist between teammates in a Formula 1 team, but there is just one, and that is don't take each other off in the race. Unfortunately, the two Jordan boys have done just that. Now the computer has righted itself. Michael Schumacher is setting fastest sector times left, right and centre, but he's going to have to, because he's 45.3 seconds behind this man, his own teammate Rubens Barrichello, in an identical Ferrari with presumably the same tyres, well, definitely the same tyres, and presumably a similar strategy. So now we're going to see what Michael can do. He's got traffic between them as well to make up if he's going to try and win this motor race ahead of Rubens Barrichello. And I suppose the question then would be, would Barrichello be asked to move over? Surely not, but that's a long, long way in the future. That's your race order at the moment, though.
If I was right that they were fueling Michael light to get him down to the first corner, once again Michael poorly away, as he was in Melbourne, did not leave the line nicely. But he could well now be on the wrong strategy considering his track position. They expected him to be out front and comfortably leading. He's right out back and plumb last.
Which is great news for us watching it. 21st place at the moment. Michael Schumacher, 19th he's made itself up to now. The computer's just putting itself right on that. And carving his way. The next car he's going to have to pass is Mark Webber in the Minardi. Then it's Alex Young, Eddie Irvine rather. Sluggish in 16th place in the Jaguar with his teammate Pedro de la Rosa just in front of him in 15th. It's been a tough weekend for the Jaguar team, as it has for the BAR team as well, and they're just in front in 13th and 14th as well. There's your race leader.
It'll be really interesting now to find out when Barrichello has to pit. I'm pretty sure it will be before the Williams. I assume they don't have as big a fuel tank, and I would be surprised if they're as heavy as the Williams. I think that's why you're seeing this lead build at the moment to 2.7 seconds. The winner on the start line was Jarno Trulli. He made up 5 places, currently running 8. So Renault's 6 and 8. Montoya then up to 7th place, James. Haven't seen any of it, unfortunately, on the screen, but Montoya screaming his way back through the pack, and Michael Schumacher is now up to 19th. He took 1.1 seconds out of Rubens Barrichello lead on the last lap alone.
Yes, the other big winners from the start were Ralf Schumacher, who was 4th, now 2nd. David Coulthard, who was 6th, now 4th. Mika Salo went up from 10th to 9th. Heidfeld went up from 7th to 6th. And Kimi Räikkönen as well, a terrific start for him. He was 5th on the grid, and he's now 3rd.
So it'd be really interesting to pick up Montoya, I think. There's where the next action is going to be. He's 1.4 behind Jenson Button in 6th, who's another 1.4 behind Heidfeld in 5th. And here then is a replay of the start. Hopefully we'll get it in the corner of our screen. The Ferrari slowly away. Michael recognised it instantly and went to cover his ground. A very abrupt move. You're allowed to move once. And Michael takes that to the extreme, as in anything he does behind the wheel of a racing car. Here's an overhead view. And you can see, the car on the back of the grid didn't get away at all. They're 3 abreast then, heading into turn 1, and it's quite clear that Montoya thinks he's going to go around the outside, and Michael says, no, I'm having none of that. I'm assuming Michael, they cut away just at the juicy bit there, I'm assuming Michael would have then understeered a little bit wide, having come at such an acute angle into turn 1 there, and just brushed with Montoya.
I think the point was, though, that Montoya kept his foot in, didn't he? It's quite a wide first corner there, and he decided he's going to go right round the outside. We've seen David Coulthard do that in the previous years, go round the outside of Michael Schumacher, and Montoya obviously learnt from that experience. A fantastic move, and look what it's done for him. Not a lot, he's in 7th, but it's done even less for Michael Schumacher, now down in 19th place. As we look at Ralf Schumacher, currently 2nd. What's the margin? 3.3 seconds, so keeping Barrichello relatively honest. Barrichello only dropping in by about, well, a 10th on that lap.
I don't think Williams will be too unhappy about that, but luckily it seems as if Montoya did not pick up a puncture. So often the side wing end fences, although they're now radiused more nicely, can just cut a tyre if in fact that wing did make contact with a tyre, which is what most often happens. But Montoya appearing to be okay. He's narrowed the gap to Jenson Button in 6th place down to just half a second. So hopefully we can pick that scrap up at some point, because that's where all the action is at the moment. Michael Schumacher remains 19th and ironically lost a couple of tenths last time around to Rubens Barrichello. He's now 43, and look, so that he's carrying Michael's wing with him. That eventually then gets spat out back into the racetrack, and Michael with a car that just would not want to turn. All the rear, normally it's something around 40% aero split on the front, 60 on the rear, and Michael would have 100 on the rear, but just about, and 0 on the front, and your car feels like a speedboat.
It'll be interesting to see also whether Montoya's car sustained any other damage. If you look carefully on these cars, just behind the front wings, you can see aerodynamic devices, and in fact it looks as though Ralf Schumacher's missing one there, but just behind the front wheels there is an aerodynamic device which also helps to create the downforce, which presses these cars down onto the track, and Montoya may well be missing parts of that, but he's the kind of racer who will just keep his foot hard to the floor, keep on pressing until the checkered flag. He's currently 13.5 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, the race leader, and just in front of him is Jenson Button on the racetrack with Nick Heidfeld as well. Those three circulating very much together. Looks like a pretty good scrap. You can just see it at the top of your screens there as the two McLarens came through. Raikkonen, as he has been all weekend, ahead of Coulthard, and there's that scrap I'm talking about, right at the top of the screen. Looks like Montoya's ready to make a move on Button. Will we follow that?
And he's made it, hasn't he?
There he is.
Made it stick. That Williams has had 3 or 4k advantage on everybody else, 3 or 4 kilometres per hour advantage down the straight, and he made it pay off there, didn't he? And pulled out of the slipstream right at the inside of Jenson Button, taking over 6th position. So Barrichello leads by 3.5 seconds now. From Ralf Schumacher, Raikkonen 3rd, 10 seconds behind Barrichello. Coulthard a further 1.1 behind that.
I mentioned a second ago, Martin, that Raikkonen has really been in front of Coulthard all weekend, hasn't he? Seems to have just come here straight away and just got on the track. Coulthard's had all manner of problems throughout the weekend.
It does seem that Kimi's been better hooked up for whatever reason, no doubt about it, but strangely off the pace really, the McLarens through qualifying, although I don't think they'll be too unhappy at the moment. They're about a second a lap slower than Barrichello. Remember, that's about 25 kilos of fuel, so if they are heavily gassed up, then they may be okay at this stage. You know, this is a race that's going to come to us towards the end, and certainly watching Montoya and Michael Schumacher recovering through the pack is going to be very exciting.
We're hearing that there's an incident involving car number 6, which is Juan Montoya, under investigation by the stewards. That's presumably the incident at the start. They're having a look at it, so let's hope they don't decide to punish him by giving him a black flag, stop and go penalty, anything like that.
I remember saying in my pre-season or previews that I thought those two were going to get together, not in spectacular accident fashion, but you know, there's a seniority got to be established there. You were saying yesterday to me, James, that Montoya's passed Michael 4 times, and Michael passed him for the first time in Melbourne. But those two really are trying to stamp their authority. Michael to maintain it, Montoya to seize the high ground, and I think we're going to see a lot more of those two getting together.
Well, let's hope they don't collide too often. I was talking to a member of Schumacher's camp, and in fact he's going to get a drive-through penalty, Montoya. So Juan Montoya is going to be called into the pit lanes. He'll lose, I'll tell you exactly how much time he'll lose. He will lose 20 seconds doing that. That's how long it takes to come into the pits and go back out again. And
that, of course, then is at 120 kilometres per hour from the start of the speed limit area to the white line at the exit of the pits. I've never seen that penalty applied before. Normally it's a stop and go. I wasn't even aware that penalty existed, I have to say.
It does now.
It certainly does. And I know the stewards do have a certain amount of discretion on these things, but they've clearly seen something we haven't, because I couldn't really see anything other than Montoya trying to go around the outside and Michael not willing to yield. Nothing I saw that suggested Montoya got it wrong.
It may be that he monstered somebody else on his way through at a different incident. We're presuming it's the incident at the start, but it might not be.
True.
Here's the Jaguar team. They've been having a very tough weekend so far. That's Pedro de la Rosa. Looks like yet another nose change, and in this case it looks like the bolts holding on the nose won't come off, or either that or they can't get the jack underneath, but it's taking a long time. You can see the clock ticking away for De La Rosa, and so obviously a lot of close contact in these early laps. It's only lap 9 now, and a lot of nose cones been changed.
and they want the car back up again. There's clearly they put a secondary stay underneath for safety or whatever, and that wasn't completely clear. The car had to re-lift it up, so a very costly nose change for the Jaguar team.
De La Rosa dropping from 15th place down to 19th, but we're looking at the scrap on track between Enrique Bernoldi in the Arrows in 11th place, in 10th place make that, who's got ahead of Felipe Massa in the Sauber. Now, Arrows all weekend have been really quick when they've had the car on the track, but they've had a number of technical problems, as they had in Australia 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, though, in qualifying, Frentzen managed to get 11th place, showing this car has got some speed in it. Now, this is Jarno Trulli in the pits. Trulli in 14th place. Maybe he's got close contact damage as well.
Couldn't possibly be in a scheduled stop, of course. They're on lap 9 at the moment. Frentzen, you were talking about, who started so well on the grid, is down in 21st place. He must have been that Arrows we saw in the distant background when Michael Schumacher came in for his nose change at the end of the first lap of the Grand Prix. Barrichello's lead now up to 4.3 seconds. Action all the way through. Toyota having a good day. They're currently 8th and 9th, Salo and McNish. So they're running well. This could be another one of those days where the tail end of the points are going to be dished out to teams that are not normally receiving them.
Well, let's hope so. We saw a lot of that in Australia, but Rubens Barrichello, the race leader at the moment, as we enter lap 10, he's got an advantage of 4.8 seconds now over Ralf Schumacher. And it's interesting to look at Rubens' record around here, because he was third in 2000 on his first appearance here for Ferrari. Last year he was the runner-up, so to complete the sequence he's looking for that win this weekend.
And Montoya, I think, is taken to the pit lane for his drive-through penalty. And as you say, that means negotiating the pit lane entry, 120 kilometres an hour through the zone and back out the other end. We're not seeing it on screen, but I saw him flash past the commentary box window. So Montoya, you're allowed to take any penalty within the next 3 laps. You have to take them. Ted in the pits.
Martin, just looking at the body language of Sam Michael, who's the Williams tech boss, after Patrick Head, of course, who's the chief tech boss. It was a sense of injustice. It was a matter of who did the worst thing first. And they clearly believe that Michael's really severe chop against Montoya was worse than what Montoya did. But then, of course, they would think that. Montoya just looked up at Sam Michael as he came through for that drive-by, as if to say, well, what he did was much worse than what I did to him.
I know, I can well understand them being a bit miffed. If they haven't seen anything more than we've seen up here in the commentary box, there's nothing to suggest that Montoya was doing anything other than trying to lead a Grand Prix.
But of course, the other way of looking at it is that Michael's been punished already, hasn't he? He's right down the back of the field. He lost 47 seconds as a result of the incident. But, well, I'm sure we'll be debating that one afterwards in the press offices and in the bars of Sepang. At the moment, that's Jarno Trulli retiring from the race. We saw him in the pits just a moment ago, and that's him going out. And we hear that Olivier Panis has stopped out on the circuit as well. So, reasonably high attrition rate already. There is Panis in the BAR. A rotten weekend for him as well. Only managed to get out for the last 10 minutes of qualifying yesterday, just due to a lot of technical problems with that BAR car, so he'll want to forget Sepang 2002.
Yeah, the sad thing about BAR this weekend is they've not been reliable particularly, and they've been slow as well, so as you said, they'll want to forget that. Villeneuve is currently in 12th place, Michael Schumacher up to 15th with the various retirements, and people generally having having nose changes, so Schumacher is losing ground. I wonder if there was some other damage. You were talking about other aerodynamic pieces around the barge boards, particularly around the side of the cockpit. I wonder if Michael Schumacher lost some other bits, because he's not having anything like the kind of pace we expected.
Well, we'll find out soon, but at the moment, as we work on lap 11, it's Rubens Barrichello leading from Ralf Schumacher by almost 5 seconds now. Then another 9 seconds back is Kimi Räikkönen. David Coulthard is with him, so is Nick Heidfeld, and Jenson Button still in 6th place. Pretty explosive start again to the Grand Prix, and McLaren looking pretty good at the moment, you have to say. Looked like they were going to run a strategy that would work for them, as everybody tries to do every time they go racing, but McLaren often stronger on Sunday in the race than they are in qualifying. Quite often get the setup just a little bit wrong, but then they come out of the box very strong on Sunday afternoon.
Line astern, then they go over the timing beam, 9/10 of a second behind Raikkonen is Coulthard, and Heidfeld a further 1.4. Really not challenging quite as hard as I thought he would, Heidfeld, and Sauber not perhaps showing the pace we expected after their stunning winter testing time, but nonetheless 5th at the moment. Button is 6th, and Montoya rejoined in 9th place and is currently absolutely flying. On board with him now as he heads down into turn 14, I believe that was. Sadly, we've cut straight away. That's Barrichello, just come out of turn 8 on the next lap, of course, and into turn 9, negotiating the Jordan. Both Jordans then have had problems. They ran into each other, lost a front wing, one of them, and the other lost a rear wing. And it seems as if Fisichella has come back into the race after that wing change.
Yes, Fisichella 2 laps down on the rest of the field. We've also got Frentzen a lap down. We saw him in the pit lane right at the start. Jarno Trulli, we've seen, has already retired from this race, as has Olivier Panis. So we've got 18, in fact De La Rosa is a lap down as well after that wing change. So only 17 cars still on the lead lap. And Rubens Barrichello still out in front. This is exactly where he wanted to be. Back live at Sepang, Malaysia, and this is the right place to be because it's all going off here today. Rubens Barrichello leads this motor race ahead of Ralf Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen 3rd and David Coulthard 4th. Where's Michael Schumacher, you may ask? Well, he's down in 13th place after an incident at the first corner with Juan Montoya. Montoya has been given a drive-through penalty, came through the pit lane 2 laps ago, and he is now back in 9th place. He's 34 seconds behind the race leader, and he's going like a rat up a drain pipe. Last time through, a new lap record for him. Fastest lap of the race. He's got his foot well and truly hammered onto the floor. Yes,
I think he's an angry Montoya out there at the moment, and catching McNish and Salo very quickly. The 2 Toyota runners currently in 7th and 8th. So Montoya, I think, will be sweeping through those, easily the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment, and already looking at these computer times on another stunning lap. You're watching the race leader, 5.2 seconds ahead. I think Ralf Schumacher's looking pretty handy. He's in 2nd place. Car looks good. We know those Michelins come in the further they go, and when they get rid of a bit of meat off of them. And keep an eye on Ralf Schumacher. I think he's looking pretty strong.
Well, there's always the question that arises at this sort of stage as we look at Michael Schumacher carving his way through the field in 12th place, of what strategy everybody is using. It certainly looks as though Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher are on a similar sort of fuel, though, judging by their lap times. They're no more than 2 or 3 tenths of a second apart in speed. I certainly hope, for Rubens Barrichello's sake, that Ralf Schumacher's got a similar load of fuel. If he's got more fuel on board, then he is looking very, very strong indeed. The McLarens, however, generally lapping about a second to a 2.4 slower than the lead bunch, and so that may mean they're carrying a little bit more fuel, so they're not completely out of the picture.
Well, you've seen lots of cars in the pits here on F1 ITV today already, but only 2 that are completely out of the race. Panis stopped out on the track, Trulli retired, pushed back into the garage. They got Fisichella going again in the Jordan. He's 2 laps behind. They changed his rear wing, and Sata, who lost his front wing, running into the back of Fisichella. The 2 Jordan teammates, he's up to 17th place, but is also a lap down.
Terrific scrap here between the arrows of Benoldi in 10th place, Massa in 11th place in the Sauber, powered by a Ferrari engine, and right behind them is Michael Schumacher, the reigning world champion, also, I would imagine, fairly angry after what happened at the start. Let's just have a look and see if he's lost any other parts of his bodywork. No, it looks like the car is intact. Currently lapping Schumacher, well, the last lap was about 3 seconds slower than the race leaders, so obviously having trouble just getting his way through the traffic. But he's not closing, is he, on that Sauber very quickly?
No, he did a 40.4, 1 minute 40.4, so it's about 9/10. That's Villeneuve. He cleared Villeneuve on that lap to take 12th place, James. So kind of okay pace. He's matching Barrichello up front, it has to be said. But it's Montoya, the man who's putting in the times. And Montoya remains 9th, but is now right behind the Toyotas. And this then is Michael Schumacher in 12th, just behind Massa and Bernoldi, the two Brazilians squabbling over the end of the top 10.
Well, Ferrari won't want the Sauber to hold them up for too long. Sauber are a loyal customer of Ferrari. They benefit greatly from their partnership with them. In fact, many people would argue that the reason the Saubers are so competitive, and let's not forget Nick Heidfeld is currently in 4th place, having got past David Coulthard unseen by us. So that's how competitive Sauber are today. How will Massa do with Schumacher coming up down the inside? It looks like an easy peasy chocolate squeezy, and indeed it is. Coulthard
has dropped back to 7th. Coulthard's got a problem. We haven't, he was 7th over the line with a very, very slow lap time, David Coulthard, and is down in 7th position. We haven't seen him coasting, but it does suggest he's got a problem. Michael then easily clears the Sauber. As you say, it's effectively a B team for Ferrari, really. Louise is in the pits with Jarno Trulli.
That's right, I am indeed. An early bath for you today, Jarno. What's put you out?
I have had a problem with the temperature at the end of the first lap. It's a shame because the car was running very well. I did a great start, overtook several cars, and the braking like Fisichella and Salo and some others. But unfortunately, the temperature was too high. We came back, we checked the radiators, but there was nothing to do.
There appeared to be various incidents on the first lap. Did you see anything of any of them?
No, honestly, I just tried to keep away from the troubles.
Thanks, Jarno. Just to update you on Olivier Panis, the other car out of the race today, that was a clutch failure.
Thank you, Louise. So truly then just with technical problems. What is the problem with Coulthard? That is Michael Schumacher in 11th place, trying to get past the arrows of Bernoldi. And Bernoldi's got some good traction, good acceleration. Look at that, able to keep stretching it out.
Remember Monaco last year? David Coulthard got stuck behind Enrique Bernoldi for about 50 laps. Schumacher won't have those kind of problems. This is a much easier track to overtake on.
It is. Bernoldi getting a major wobble on the way into 7. He can see the Ferrari in his mirrors, and as you rightly point out, James, he's not one who's well known for just skipping out of the way. Michael then with a very good slipstream. Coulthard in the pit lane. Looks like he's got technical problems once again. Don't tell me it's another day when he's not going to score any points. Michael in good shape. Ted in the pits.
Martin, it is another problem for David Coulthard. Oh no, he's retiring. He's retiring. I better get out of the way because he's coming straight for me. The engine sounds, well, he's still running, but it is definitely terminal for David Coulthard. Just a couple of seconds before we saw that, Adrian Newey did his usual thing of rushing off the pit lane, going look at the telemetry, but that's it, he's out of the race.
0 points then from 2 Grand Prix for Coulthard. You saw as Ted was explaining that to us, and look, is that Bernoldi coming back again at Michael? Michael passed him down into turn 1. Bernoldi came back at him, and he'll turn in on you, Michael. You won't get through there. That's amazing.
This reminds me of back in 1990 when Jean Alesi in a Tyrrell had the audacity to overtake Ayrton Senna, and Senna couldn't quite believe it. He went past him, and then Alesi passed him again, and that's exactly what we've got here today. Enrique Bernoldi, would you believe it, in an Arrows, powered by a customer Ford Cosworth engine, the same engine that you'd find in the back of a Jaguar, has just overtaken Michael Schumacher in a Ferrari. Well, I never thought I'd live to see that.
Well, it is for position, of course, and it's for a 10th position in this Grand Prix, so he's fully entitled to have a go back, no problem at all there. And I'd like to have seen, Michael must have got, having gone up the inside of him into 1, and look at the extra grip Michael's got under braking, and that's where he's obviously going to pass him. He'll have another guy at him into turn 15, I'd imagine, and if not, back into turn 1. But clearly Michael got out of shape somewhere in 1 and 2, and Bernoldi just came back. He's covering the line, but I think he's not going to hold him off this time around.
Oh.
Michael on an acute line. If Bernoldi's smart, he'll get a nice early run out and see if he can pick up that slipstream once again, but his car's not good enough under braking to repass him. Montoya, a new fastest lap of the race, still not in the 1:38 yet where the lap record is, but it's a 1:39.392, and Michael now is clear and will scamper off.
Well, he certainly made it look easy for the second time, Michael Schumacher. A nice pass, no problems at all. Bernoldi, you have to say, gave him the space. But, well, that will have added a couple of noughts, I would imagine, to Bernoldi's wage claims for next season, won't it? He's proved that he's a real racer. He can take on the best in the world. Well, the man to watch at the moment, though, Martin, as you rightly say, is Juan Montoya. He's now, well, he's still 37 seconds behind the race leader, but he's closing in fast on Mika Salo in 6th place. That's the last of the points-paying positions. I haven't talked much about Toyota yet today, say, but Salo currently 6th, and Alan McNish's teammate, doing a super job at the moment in 8th place as Barrichello comes to put another lap on, looks like, well, it must be Sato. Or is it Fisichella? It's Fisichella. He's going 3 laps down now, Fisichella.
Rubens still lapping in the 139s. Ralf Schumacher then now, a new fastest lap of the race. We're getting into the sweet spot where those Michelins have reduced the amount of rubber in the tread, where they seem to pick up an awful lot of front grip. So the 2 fastest cars now by several tenths of a second on each lap are Ralf Schumacher 2nd place and Montoya 7th place in the BMW Williams. And there's the confirmation, but that's going to change. That's now a 1:38.8 for Montoya. They're flying.
They're trading fastest laps, the 2 Williams drivers. They'll both be being kept informed by their race engineers via the radio of the kind of pace that each other is setting, and we know, don't we, how intense the rivalry is between these 2 drivers. They almost want to beat each other more than they want to beat Michael Schumacher. That's how hard they push. Montoya, though, the man with the fastest car on the track at the moment, as you say, Martin, a 1:38.872, and that's getting close to the fastest lap we've seen in race conditions so far this weekend.
Well, the outright lap record here, set in 2000, because we had rain last year, of course, was a 1:38.5, so they're homing in on that. Barrichello leads by 5.6 seconds from this man, Ralf Schumacher. Raikkonen 16 seconds behind him in 3rd place.
Exciting motor race indeed, as we often have here in Malaysia, as you watch the race leader, Rubens Barrichello, putting yet another lap on Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So Frentzen now 2 laps down on the leaders in 18th place. Just run you through some of the other people we haven't really talked about very much today. We know that Salo, as I say, was in 6th place with Montoya breathing down his neck in 7th. Behind them, McNish in 8th place. Michael Schumacher now up to 9th, having passed Enrique Bernoldi. As you look at the Michelin man there, he's one of the senior technicians, that guy, looking at the timing screens, realising, as we were saying, that the Michelin tyres are coming into that sweet spot now. The performance is really starting to come through. Felipe Massa is 11th. Jacques Villeneuve is in 12th place for BAR. Eddie Irvine still going strong in 13th place for Jaguar. And then it's the 2 Minardis, and would you believe it, Alexander Jung, the local boy, Malaysian born and bred, is ahead of his teammate Mark Webber, who was the hero of Melbourne for Minardi.
Still then the Williams, the 2 fastest drivers on the racetrack. They really look menacing. I think Barrichello now will start to come under pressure. Ralf has him in his sights. Barrichello was going out of turn 3. Ralf was negotiating turn 2 already. They're getting quite close.
Well, we were talking before, when Michael Schumacher went out, had to go into the pits and change his nose cone, about how he would cut through the field. Well, in terms of position, he's certainly done that, but in terms of the time he finds himself behind the race leader, he's now 3 seconds further back relative to Barrichello than he was at that time. He's now 50 seconds behind Barrichello as we were lap 20, getting relatively close to the window now for the 2 stoppers to make their first stop. It's a 55 lap race, 194 miles the race distance, and it's been interesting already, but it's about to get a whole bunch more interesting. You're back live at Sepang. You can see Sauber making a pit stop, but more significantly in the background there, the Ferrari mechanics. That's Nick Heidfeld now you're looking at. The Ferrari mechanics, though, ready to welcome one of their 2 drivers, and we're waiting to see which one it is. It's Michael Schumacher has come into the pit lane. There he is in the top of your frame, coming in from 9th place. So this is probably Ross Brawn deciding to do something a bit different to try and get Michael up the field. Either that or he's got a problem.
No, I still think they fueled Michael light in this sure knowledge that he was going to be into the first corner first and just dive off into the lead of this race and stretch. But he's not been fast, considering how little fuel he's had on board. Relatively then, just 20 laps worth of fuel did Michael Schumacher have, and that really makes it even more of a surprise at his lack of pace as he's been coming back through the field. Barrichello leads by 5.3 seconds. And Williams have consistently in the last 3 or 4 laps been faster than anybody else, and they're looking menacing. Montoya then is now just up behind Mika Salo in 6th place, just 0.4 of a second, so we can expect Montoya to be in the points anytime soon. And Jenson Button is just a further half second down the road in 5th.
That's Alex Young coming in to stop from 15th place, was in front of his teammate Mark Webber before that stop, so he's running really strongly here at Sepang to be in front of Webber, who, let's not forget, was the hero of Melbourne a few weeks ago. That's not going right, is it? Oh, get it in gear. Oh, that's a bit like me when I started to drive. But he's got it away anyway. These clutches must be very awkward to get to bite. They're hand steering wheel mounted clutches now, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think it was a clutch problem. I think he just wasn't in gear. So they're actually, no, they're okay when you get used to them. But now look, that's Montoya. He has cleared Salo. He is in 6th, and he is just behind 5th place man Jenson Button, who makes a mistake in turn 2. Montoya couldn't make anything of it. He also had to get out of the gas, but we know just how fast that car is. And look at the way he will now home in, but it'll be tough. It's such a short braking zone into turn 4, that really not a good chance to overtake. He'll now have to bide his time through 5, 6, 7 and 8. He may have a slot into 9 for a desperate last break, but I think he'll have to wait till nearer the end of the lap because he's struggling in the turbulent air. And it seems like Barrichello is now due in the pits. Ferrari out again. Barrichello then in this time, so as we thought, he has a little less fuel than the Williams. Williams looking very strong at this time. Williams responding, they are also out into the pit lane.
It's going to be a straightforward race, if indeed it is Ralf Schumacher that's coming into the pits. There is Rubens Barrichello though, the race leader. Up onto the jacks he goes. Off come the old Bridgestone tyres, brand new tyres you can see going onto that. A very short fuel indeed. That was really very little fuel going into that car. And where is the Williams? Is it going to be Ralf Schumacher, or is it going to be Juan Montoya coming in? We're just waiting to see now. No sign. Has Ralf Schumacher crossed the start-finish line? No, there. That's one of the McLarens. So that's Rubens Barrichello who's going to rejoin behind Kimi Raikkonen. So that's going to put Barrichello back on the track in 3rd place.
Indeed it has. Ralf Schumacher did not pit. It was Montoya who pitted. And let's have a listen to this pit stop as Montoya, as the Williams team. Hear the air guns, tyres going on. Selected first gear, a little clunk of first gear, and off he goes, drops the clutch, traction control working overtime, 8.6 seconds. He lost a couple to the Ferrari pit stop, was absolutely brilliant at 6.6. 8.6 is about the norm, so Montoya rejoins, I suspect, in about 8th or 9th place.
But the bad news is he's rejoined behind that Sauber you can see there, and I suspect that the idea is we look at Bernoldi there, who was going so well and was running in 12th place. He's had some kind of problem, Bernoldi, and has gone off the track. You can see the marshal there trying to move him. But I suspect what Ferrari were trying to do was get Barrichello back out in front of Raikkonen, and it failed. Raikkonen is in front on the racetrack of Rubens Barrichello, and there you can see it on your screens now. That's not what Rubens Barrichello or Ferrari had in mind here.
Now that'll be difficult for them. Of course, he's got fresher tyres, but a little bit more fuel on board now, Barrichello, having had that stop. They didn't fuel it too heavily, and you're right. I think they kept it short to try and relaunch him back onto the racetrack ahead of the McLaren. It didn't quite pay off, did it? Raikkonen could be leading his first Grand Prix anytime soon, depending on when the new leader, Ralf Schumacher, pits. Ralf Schumacher now lapping in the 1:38s as well, and his lead 21.4 seconds as he crossed the line this time around.
And if you're wondering why didn't Ralf Schumacher pit, well, we don't know why he didn't come in, but certainly the Williams mechanics, although they came out onto the pit apron looking as though they were going to go for a showdown with Ferrari, they decided not to do that. They went back in, so Ralf Schumacher still to pit. This is lap 23. You're looking at the battle for 2nd place. Kimi Raikkonen in his 2nd outing for McLaren, got a podium first time out in Australia, currently running P2 with Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari breathing down his neck. And we should say a word for Jenson Button, who's doing a super job at the moment in 4th place, yet to make a pit stop, but nevertheless Button in the Renault, underlining the fantastic performance he's put in all weekend and going very strongly, as is Nick Heidfeld in 5th place.
That's the scrap for 2nd then. Raikkonen, Barrichello stopped. We can assume Raikkonen is on a long one-stopper, so I'd be surprised if he's in any time soon. He's looking in good shape this afternoon too. Mark Webber has stopped out on the track somewhere. It's Cathy Auger, the wife of Mansur Auger, one of the part owners of the McLaren team. So we think Webber's joined the list of retirees, which is David Coulthard, technical. Panis stopped out on the racetrack, technical. Jarno Trulli retired into the pit garage, technical problems. So Ralf Schumacher's lead, 21.4 seconds, and maintaining it at the moment. So Raikkonen also now doing nicely on those Michelin tyres. They do seem to enjoy a good long run in hot conditions, don't they?
They certainly do. Now you can see the battle for second place between Raikkonen and Barrichello, and this time Barrichello is a lot closer. Bear in mind he's got fuel on board. He's not taken too much fuel on board. We haven't actually worked out exactly how much he took on, but it's probably not much more than about 40 kilos of fuel, which is probably about 15 laps worth. So a tactic being played here. We're not exactly certain how it's going to pull out, because we don't know how much fuel Raikkonen's got on board. But it's certainly going to be interesting, as it always is when two cars have got completely different race strategies on the way.
Still trying to find out what happened to David Coulthard. The team don't always want to tell you, James, as you know well from when you work down there. Yeah, but particularly McLaren can understand that, and they don't always know immediately anyway. It takes a little bit of analysis to understand exactly what went wrong on what is a very complex piece of machinery. Raikkonen appears to be able to stretch his legs. He's under pressure, under braking, but around the rest of the track appears to have more than enough speed.
Well, there's Felipe Massa making his first stop, and not a pretty tidy one too. We're hoping to catch a word with David Coulthard shortly. I'm sure Louise, if she always gets her man, I'm sure she will this time, never let us down. But Ralf Schumacher on lap 25 still leading. And interestingly, Ralf Schumacher was one of the few drivers that actually went back to Europe between Australia and this race. Most of them stayed out here to get fit. And look at this, Raikkonen's blown up.
That's a blown motor from Raikkonen. We assume it looks that way. It's coming through the left bank exhaust, and it seems as if Raikkonen, he was squirming around in that last corner. Maybe he's losing some oil, and I think a lick of flame under there too, I saw briefly. So the second McLaren retires. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, I've been looking at the mechanics who've been taking apart David Coulthard's car. Now, they've been looking at the engine on Coulthard's car. Now, I can't say for sure because I don't know, but it does look like it's a Mercedes-Benz engine failure for both of these cars now, but we don't know that for certain as yet, Martin.
Okay, well, I said yesterday that the paddock gossip is they're a little bit down on power, but he certainly didn't seem to lack power down the straights, but unfortunately he has lacked reliability, and we don't know for sure what Coulthard's problem was, but that pretty much looked like an engine failure, didn't it?
Yes, Coulthard had an engine fire on Friday, one of the reasons why he didn't get much track time in the practice sessions this weekend, and certainly Raikkonen's problem is engine related. It's a very difficult situation when you're chasing more power. The temptation, I would imagine, to turn up the wick and get a bit more performance, but you've got to trade that off against reliability, and it's very difficult. There's a terrific scrap in Germany between BMW and Mercedes for marketing, for image, for brand, all that kind of thing. At the moment, BMW have the upper hand, and Mercedes under quite a lot of pressure as Ralf Schumacher starts lap 26.
Jenson Button up into third place then. He's yet to pit. He's doing a great race. He obviously started very fat on fuel. So Ralf Schumacher hasn't pitted. He's leading, of course, 24.4 seconds ahead of Barrichello. They've both got to stop one more time like that. So that is a very close race between those two. And Button hasn't stopped in third place either, and he has to have a great chance of a podium position. Raikkonen is now out of fourth place, so Heidfeld moves up. Montoya then moves up into fifth.
Yes, and we saw Michael Schumacher at the start of this race collide with Juan Montoya and go to the back of the field, having changed his nose cone. Well, he's now 80 seconds behind the race leader Ralf Schumacher in 8th place, but he has made one pit stop for fuel, so he's not a contender at the moment for even a podium position as it stands, but it may well be that as the midfield runners between him and the leaders, Salo, Heidfeld, Raikkonen, etc. Well, Raikkonen's out, of course, hasn't come through on the computer yet, but as those guys come in for their stops, that Michael Schumacher will start to move up into the picture.
There's Jenson Button then, our new third place man. He's just done the fastest first sector of his race so far, so seems like the car's getting better and better. Jaguar of De La Rosa in the pits. De La Rosa came out of, it is indeed De La Rosa, yeah, he came in from 15th place. Salo pits then in the Toyota. He was 6th when he pitted.
Yes, Salo, it looks like he's going straight into the garage though. That is, well, that's one kind of pit stop, isn't it? That's it, Kaputski for the Toyota. And so now, it's very interesting this, isn't it? Because Raikkonen's dropped out and Salo's dropped out as well. And that means Michael Schumacher is now in the points, in 6th place, would you believe, after all that. So Ralf Schumacher's leading from Barrichello, Button 3rd, Heidfeld 4th, but he's made a stop, so is Barrichello. There's Michael Schumacher, look how much he's chucking that car about. Now he's in 6th place, but still that matter of 80 seconds behind the race leader.
Yes, he stopped twice, once for a new nose, once for a scheduled pit stop. What's fun looking though is he's only 13 seconds behind Montoya. Wouldn't it be nice? I mean, they're saying on there Michael Schumacher one stop. That's absolutely not correct. It's Montoya who stopped once. Montoya came through the pits for obviously his drive through. It wasn't a pit stop as such, but Schumacher has definitely been in the pits twice this afternoon. Ralf Schumacher then comes to lap Alan McNish and does so comfortably deep on the brakes into turn 9. Ralf Schumacher leading now by 24.8 seconds.
The sole remaining Toyota in the race, Alan McNish, after the retirement of Mika Salo, but they've certainly acquitted themselves very well here, I think it's fair to say, running in the points for the 2nd race in a row after their first, this is actually their Grand Prix debut season, so Toyota will be well pleased if they can get one car to the finish, but McNish looking a bit leery there on the way out. Ralf Schumacher though at the moment beginning to pull out his gap over Rubens Barrichello. Last time through he was 7/10 of a second faster than the Brazilian, and he wants to win this motor race very badly. 3 times a winner in last season, his teammate Montoya's 1. And as we have a look again at Ralf Schumacher lapping that Toyota, and this is really where Ralf Schumacher's championship charge will have to start, because he didn't score any points in Australia after that collision. But a tidy move on McNish to lap him.
Ralf was very committed in there, wasn't he? Good job Alan was letting him through, because I don't think Ralf would have stopped. That is Villeneuve on what I believe to be a scheduled stop. He was in 8th place when he went in the pits, but lapping about 2 to 3 seconds off the ultimate pace, sadly. Shot
of the rear of the Williams there, going through that fantastic flick-flack change of direction as we see Jacques Villeneuve rejoining the race in 8th place.
This is a wonderful venue, isn't it? If you're planning to go to an overseas Grand Prix, put this one very near the top of your list. It's a long way away, but it's worth the effort. Wonderful facility and good racing. And there then is a Jaguar off the road. Ted is in the pits.
Martin, I'm down here at the McLaren garage with Adrian Newey. Adrian, it looked like engine, it sounded like engine. What was it?
Yeah, on David's car we lost power. We don't know the reason for that yet, but lost power. He was lapping slowly. We weren't sure what was happening, so we felt it was safer to pull him in, stop him, not in danger. David, Kimi is clearly an engine blower for some description, don't know why yet.
So yet another failure, but this time engine related. Do you think you can get your technical side back on track for the next few races?
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's disappointing we had good pre-season reliability, but obviously only one finish out of 4 starts, which is a pretty poor record, so just got to go back and try and understand the problems.
Thanks very much, Adrian.
Eddie Irvine pitting then. We saw him run into the back of Alex Young. He was lapping Young at the time. It was not for position. The front wing is wedged underneath the front floor pan, and there you see Eddie running wide, no front grip, and in fact his front tires have been lifted off the ground with that problem, and he seemed somewhat angry and surprised that Young came across in front of him, but it seemed to me like Young was just taking his normal line.
Irvine in the pits then, he'll be really angry about this because he qualified a miserable 20th. You can see his rear wheel spinning there, so he's obviously got some sort of problem, but he had qualified in 20th place, so to find himself in 9th after such a poor qualifying was a terrific effort. But is he going to get back in the motor race? He certainly lights up the rear tyres, doesn't he? And well, let's see what he can do. This Jaguar R3 has been quite a talking point, really, hasn't it? They're talking about maybe replacing it for Imola onwards with last year's car, but certainly the way it's been going this afternoon, they might have to review that. It's been going quite well with Eddie Irvine at the wheel.
Yeah, actually, Irv will get away with it, but he lost a lot of time on the way in, of course, and recovering onto the racetrack. But it's in a window. He hadn't stopped up until then. He's on a one-stopper for the afternoon, so it was pretty much in a reasonable window to take on fuel anyway. So that minimised the downside of that, and ironically may not affect his race position too much. Ralf Schumacher, the lead is staying at 24.4 seconds. Barrichello's really pegging him at this stage. Ralf, of course, still has not stopped. Started the race very heavy indeed. Has just done a new lap record of this racetrack, 138.369. That's a couple of tenths inside the mark, and that is how well his car's going. And it looks like it's sticking nicely at the back end. He was pushing the throttle hard on the way out of 7 and 8 there. No problems for braking in 9. He looks like he's got the complete motor car underneath him this afternoon.
Yes, in the early stages after Michael Schumacher got involved in that collision, we saw Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher trading fast laps. It seemed that Ralf Schumacher was able to live with Barrichello when Barrichello was leading, never more than 4 or 5 seconds behind him. And now we realise just how much more fuel Ralf was carrying at that time. It just shows you how well balanced this Williams car is. That wasn't the story the whole weekend, certainly. On Friday, they were struggling to get the speed of the Ferraris, but by race day, you have to give a lot of credit to the engineers. And Louise is down in the pits with David Coulthard.
I am indeed, James. I've got my man. David, not a good weekend for you, really, at all, has it been?
No, terrible weekend. Obviously, didn't get off on a good footing when we went out in the first session and stopped after one lap. And very disappointed because obviously we benefited from the incident with Michael and Montoya. And you know, I was quite comfortable in behind Kimi because I felt I could go a lap longer at the pit stop, and that would give me the advantage I needed to jump him. But of course, we don't get to find out if the car doesn't run.
Team appear to have a bit of homework to do. Do you think you can get on top of these problems before we go to Brazil?
Well, the frustrating thing is the car actually ran very reliably during winter testing, and obviously we were maybe a little bit optimistic about our performance hopes based on what we did around Valencia and Barcelona. We never tested against Ferrari, of course, so we certainly have had reliability. It's a fact we did more kilometres in testing than any year previous before coming to the first race. So it's a bit confusing, but you're absolutely right. You know, we know this isn't the way to win races, so a lot of work to do.
Good luck.
The only saving grace at the moment is it looks as if Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya are not going to come away from this race with a big haul of points. And of course, Ralf Schumacher and Barrichello not scoring in the first round because they had the big crash in the first corner at Melbourne. Ralf looking very, very strong this afternoon. He's stretched that lead out to 26.8 seconds, and you have to think that's because he knows he's imminently due in for a pit stop and he needs everything he can. That should be enough, James, to get him back out in the lead of this race, shouldn't it?
Well, it's going to be touch and go. The computer models say, as we look at Mark Webber getting out, a little bit of a shove to get him going in that Minardi. Obviously, we're in trouble getting those things into first gear and getting them out of pit stops today, but certainly that I've been told that it takes about, well, 29 seconds in total to make a one-stop pit stop here. We're just past half distance in this race, though. This is lap 31 of 55, and Ralf Schumacher expected in this time. The Williams mechanics are out in the pit lane, so we expect to see Ralf Schumacher. In fact, he is in the pit lane now, hits the 120-kilometre board and comes down towards his pit. This is a very, very important stop for the Williams team. Look at the tyres going on.
Yeah, they're very well used already, and if the tyres that came off are missing an awful lot of grooves, then I think there could be a bit of controversy at some point. But we didn't get a great shot of the ones that are coming up. The ones going on are well scrubbed. They spend most of the weekend scrubbing their tyres down, and no, Barrichello goes through, so it hasn't paid off. But of course, Barrichello has got to stop again this afternoon. We know he's on a two-stopper. We know he was short-fueled. He did a 6.6 second stop, and Button has pitted from third place as well. Jenson Button makes his one and only, hopefully, stop of the afternoon, looking very solid in third. He's 26 seconds ahead of Montoya in fourth, and we think Montoya's got to stop again. So Button looking very strong. A miraculous pit stop was Webber, because I was told that he'd parked up out the back somewhere through my radio can, so it was a very good stop from him.
Well, indeed it was. Lap 32, Ralf Schumacher, you can see out on track, but he's behind Rubens Barrichello now. So Rubens back in the lead of this motor race. Jenson Button has just pitted from third place, which promotes Juan Montoya. And then we've got Nick Heidfeld and Michael Schumacher also still in the mix. Plenty more excitement, though, still to come here in Sepang. 3.7 seconds currently the margin then between Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher. We're into the pit stop window here. We can see cars coming in left, right and centre. The Jaguar of Eddie Irvine is back in again, presumably some sort of problem. But we've had a flurry of visitors in the last 2 or 3 laps. This is absolutely bang on target for a one-stop strategy. And you have to say that Williams have played their hand very skillfully today as regards that. They weren't always the best team when it came to race strategy. Certainly in the days when Jacques Villeneuve was taking on Michael Schumacher, and before that Damon Hill was taking on Michael Schumacher. Williams quite often messed it up on a Sunday afternoon. But so far so good today as we look at Giancarlo Fisichella, victim of part of the shenanigans on the first lap. This is his 3rd visit to the pits, I believe. Currently 3 laps down in 17th place.
Yes, 2 scheduled stops. And in fact, I think that's his first scheduled stop, James. I think the other stop was obviously to fix the rear wing, so that's his first scheduled stop of the afternoon. Although, of course, they would have refueled it when he was in having the wing fixed. So he's completely out of kilter, actually.
As I'm sure Eddie Jordan is feeling at the moment as well. It's been a brutal start to the season for him. Fisichella's managed to hoist the car up into 7th, 8th, 9th position through qualifying the first 2 races, but it's really been through Fisichella's own efforts that's happened. This Jordan car is not on top of its game at the moment. As we look at 2nd place man Ralf Schumacher, 3.8 seconds behind the race leader Rubens Barrichello. And there's Ralph's big brother fighting away as always in 6th place. Lap 34 at Sepang in Malaysia. Rubens Barrichello leading the race from Ralf Schumacher in 2nd place. 5 seconds is the margin. You're looking at Michael Schumacher, who had pole position but is now in 6th place. And in 3rd is Juan Montoya. Jenson Button is 4th. And Nick Heidfeld still going very strongly for Sauber in 5th place. Now, Ralf Schumacher has made his one and only pit stop of the day. We are still expecting that Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher in the 2 Ferraris have to make another stop. So at the moment, the pendulum, which always swings from left to right, forwards and backwards in Formula One, would appear to be very much towards Williams at the moment.
I think so. Crucial stage of the race for Barrichello. He's really got to put some hot laps in if he wants to have a chance of winning this Grand Prix, no doubt about it. Ralf then now back in the 1 minute 40s, having set a new lap record of 1:38.3. Of course, he's just taken a big dollop of fuel on board to get him to the end of the Grand Prix. We know they short-fueled the Ferrari. Took just 6.6 seconds to fuel it and change the tyres, and a great stop for them, but 5-second lead it was last time around. The data you were looking at your screen, as James was saying, that was already a lap out of date. So Barrichello now needs to put in some very, very hot laps. What's interesting is Michael Schumacher, currently in 6th, is beginning to home in on Heidfeld, 5th place man, who's just 2.8 seconds ahead.
You're looking at the battle for 10th place between Pedro de la Rosa in the Jaguar and Mark Webber. It's been an eventful day for Jaguar, and De La Rosa's already changed the nose cone so far today. And look at this, Rubens Barrichello carving his way through the McNish-Massa battle. That's the battle for 7th place. It's been raging for several laps now, and you have to say McNish is doing a super job for Toyota here in 7th place. He only needs one more driver to drop out, and he's going to be in the points.
Barrichello then, McNish has been very sensible with the leaders coming through. Remember, he let Ralf through in a very sensible way. And look at the speed of that Ferrari. Those turns are super difficult. because one leads directly into there. The exit of one is the entry to another, and it's 150, 160 miles an hour. You've got to be very, very accurate and committed, but if you get it wrong, you fly off the road in terrifying fashion, but it's a thrill to drive, no doubt about it. That then is Button, who's down to 4th place now after his one and only stop. I think he'll regain 3rd when Montoya stops, and Michael Schumacher is homing in still then on Heidfeld and Button. He's 1.4 behind Heidfeld and 3.9 behind Button, but we think he's got to stop again. Louise is in the pits with Eddie Irvine.
I am indeed, Martin. Eddie, I take it Mr. Young's not really your favourite person today.
I don't know whether he drives that line normally or he just made a mistake and didn't see. I don't know. I was coming in that lap or the next lap, so I had to push. He made it look like he was leaving me all the room in the world and then just chopped across. Maybe that's his line. Unknown future.
What actually caused you to stop, though?
Looks like we lost hydraulic pressure before the pit stop. So as I came into the pits, it wouldn't disengage the clutch, and that stalled the engine. And then when I went out, we couldn't get pressure for the clutch, so it started slipping.
And Rubens Barrichello has made a pit stop. Now the key question is, does he get out in front of Juan Montoya? Because Montoya was just 30 seconds behind him on the racetrack. What's going on here? Where is Montoya? Can we see him? Has he already gone through?
He'll have long gone through, James, won't he? Montoya. Sorry, you're talking about Montoya. Yeah, Ralph's gone through 32.7. He's
there
not.
He is. He'll
be nowhere near. Yeah. So Montoya will maintain his 3rd place, but we're sure Montoya's also got to stop again. This is the battle then for 5th place between Michael Schumacher and Nick Heidfeld. And Schumacher really in the sweet spot for a good tow. Heidfeld covering the inside line. Michael's car is very good under braking. And look, it was easy in the end.
Well, that's the 2nd time he's made a pass on a Sauber look very easy. And let's not forget, as I said before, that Sauber are a major customer of Ferrari. Not saying for a moment that they would throw away valuable points, because that was 5th place Heidfeld was sitting in, and he's just given away a point, at least to Michael Schumacher, by doing that. But certainly did look pretty easy for Michael, and he's now up into 5th place. Still 52 seconds, though, behind his own teammate, the race leader, Rubens Barrichello. But, well, we know that the Ferraris have got to stop again. So a lot more to happen here, a lot more to shake out. The man who's looking strong at the moment, though, is this guy, Ralf Schumacher. And I was mentioning before, Martin, he's one of the few drivers that went back to Europe after, as we look at Mark Webber, who's gone off the track. Ralf Schumacher, one of the few drivers to go back to Europe. He's actually got a gym in his house, apparently, that he can turn the humidity controls and do anything he likes with it. And he recreated the conditions of this place, hot, humid, sticky, in his gym, on his rowing machine every day. And he wanted to go home and see his wife and kid, and that's understandable, isn't it?
And they can also put the altitude change in as well if they want to. Most teams have pretty complex opportunities now to simulate race conditions, but I still can't help but think it's best to be out here and beavering away on the beach and jogging in these intense conditions. The track temperature is 42 centigrade, the air temperature 33 centigrade, humidity 54%. They said there was a 50% chance of rain in the 2nd half of the race. No sign of it yet out of our commentary box window. Pressure is dropping. Humidity has been rising slightly, but it doesn't look as if it's imminently going to rain at all.
As you see, Ralf Schumacher, there's the battle between Massa and McNish still going strong. So what's the pit stop situation then? Well, Michael Schumacher, as we see, that's Heidfeld into the pits from 6th place. It's a longish stop. It's a very long stop by 2-stop standards. About 3 seconds he's given away there. So that won't be very good news for him. He rejoins the track, though. Michael Schumacher stopped on lap 20, so we believe he probably have to stop again. Rubens Barrichello, he's been in twice, lap 21 and lap 35. So that's him for the day. David Coulthard is out of the race, so is Kimi Raikkonen. Ralf Schumacher stopped on lap 31, that's him for the day. As we ride on board, Nick Heidfeld currently 6th.
That's turn 3, you'll bring it over to the left-hand side, doing about 175. You can brake late, you've got the hill helps you slightly. You have to be very smooth through the entry, the exit opens up nicely. Take it to the right-hand side, ready for those wonderful turns 5 and 6. Just easing out of the throttle pedal, isn't he? You have to be super smooth through there with 800 horsepower under your right foot. And we move off board to watch him head into turn 7 and cut away to what is Ralf Schumacher trying to lap Felipe Massa, who is having a fight with Alan McNish for 7th place.
And they've been having a fight for some time, and he's been stuck behind them for some time, it's fair to say. Always a tricky moment in a motor race. At the moment, Ralf Schumacher doesn't seem to be making much of an impression on the back of this battle. He's got a 23-second advantage over Barrichello, though, so he's reasonably comfortable at the moment.
Well, he certainly can't take. He doesn't need to take a risk through these back markers at all, does he? We're sure he's not coming in again. So Ralf really has this race sewn up, providing he doesn't trip over anybody, and providing, of course, doesn't make a mistake or have a mechanical problem. But otherwise, performance-wise, he's got it in the bag.
Just 16 laps to go then in this Malaysian Grand Prix. Ralf Schumacher 23 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Juan Montoya on target for another podium finish if he can stay where he is in 3rd place. And he's just set the fastest middle sector time of the race so far. And the reason for that is because he's aware that Michael Schumacher is 18 seconds behind him and pushing very hard indeed. Montoya very keen to make it 2 Williams on the podium as Massa dives into the pit lane.
I think the fight for the final podium position is between Montoya and Jenson Button. Button's on a 1-stopper, which he's made already. Massa goes in the pits. That'll be good news for the race leader. He won't have to risk getting past the inexperienced young man who's very fast and was running in 8th place. But Montoya's got to push hard if he wants to clear Jenson Button. And Montoya, a new lap record then on a 1:38.049. Button is down in 5th, but we believe Montoya and Michael Schumacher will have to stop again.
Yes, Montoya could come in any time in the next 2 or 3 laps. He made his first pit stop of the race on lap 21, having had to drive through the pits for an incident which will be long debated after this race between himself and Michael Schumacher at the start. It was Montoya that was penalised for it. He had to drive through the pits, lost 20 seconds, while Michael Schumacher, who lost his nose cone, had to come in and have it replaced. But as you say, Martin, it's going to be a battle between Montoya and Button for that final podium position, and Montoya is going to need about 25 seconds in his pocket to make that stick. We'd wait to see the Williams mechanics now coming out onto the pit apron. What has Montoya got at the moment over Button? It's about 26 seconds, so it's going to be very, very touch and go, this stop for Juan Montoya. The Williams boys are going to have to be on their toes.
They are indeed, but I think Montoya's got it. If he comes out even just a few seconds behind Jenson Button, I think he's got the faster car underneath him, and you have to assume with a good straight line speed as well, he's got a chance of nicking that position from Jenson, which would be a shame for the British fans. But I think I fear it's imminent, providing this is a clean pit stop.
And we can see as Montoya comes down, here he is behind Rubens Barrichello, currently in 2nd place. That's an interesting one because they're actually racing each other. That was how close he managed to get to him. But Montoya dives into the pit lane, and on this lap he was very, very quick his in-lap. So this is a very, very tidy performance by Montoya. Opens the visor to let some cool air onto his face, and let's see what the Williams boys can do.
Keeps the revs very calm. He's not blipping the throttle. That helps. The tyres have gone on well. Plenty of fuel to go in. It's a reasonable stop.
Not bad.
No problem at all, really.
There is the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello. And there is Jenson Button. Jenson Button holds on to 3rd place, so it didn't work out for Montoya and Williams. And, well, good old Button, eh?
Yeah, as we thought, Button is a few seconds ahead, but we know just how fast Montoya has been. And now for the promised second stop for Michael Schumacher.
Whoa!
Barrichello is off the road. Looks like an engine problem, doesn't it? Left bank again. So Rubens Barrichello, one of the unluckiest men in Grand Prix racing, stops, falls out of 2nd position.
And the amazing thing is that's the 2nd engine failure he's had this weekend. He had one on Friday, which cost him a lot of running, and you can see the smoke pouring out of the cylinders, and boom, like the old turbo days.
Yeah, I think
launched itself completely.
He's left a trail of fluid there, very sensibly, just getting straight off the racing line and out of the way. There is a trail of fluid. I don't think it'll be a big problem, and head down, what have I got to do? It's just, I mean, he's right up there with Coulthard, isn't he, at the moment, of, you know, how hard have you got to try, how many miles have you got to run, how many hills have you got to climb through the winter? How many thousands of kilometres have you got to do of testing to score a World Championship point?
Like Coulthard, he'll be sitting at the bar tonight telling the barman his hard luck story, no doubt, because it really has. The opening 2 races of this season have been a hard luck story for both drivers. Ralf Schumacher, though, leading from Juan Montoya, second place. Oh no, here comes Michael Schumacher. Button is now second, and Schumacher comes into the pits. Ted.
Michael Schumacher then in for his second stop. He was only 17 seconds ahead of Jenson Button, so he's not going to hold that place. Some very bald-looking Bridgestone tyres come off. The fuel hose is still on. Now it's off. It's a clean stop, and he's away.
A decent stop for Michael. He's, I think, effectively in 4th place in this race. But, good news for the British drivers then, because Button then is up into 2nd place. McNish will be up into 6th place in the Toyota after Barrichello dropped out of the race. So 2 Brits in the top 6. Ralf Schumacher leads from Button and Montoya.
Race leader Ralf Schumacher last won a Grand Prix in Germany last year, as the Jordan gives him a nice wide berth. All the 2 stoppers coming out, you can see from the pit lane now. That's one of the Toyotas, that's McNish, the only remaining Toyota. He's been in from 6th place, and well, the question mark there is, can he remain ahead of Felipe Massa? Oh, there is the Toyota. That's interesting. That's
I think the other one quite clearly was Salo then. Yes, Salo had just pitted, James.
He
but
retired,
a long stop for McNish.
Oh.
The engine is still running, but they're obviously running hot or something. What is going on? Quite clearly, one Toyota coming in so close to the others, wrong-footed them completely, and that's probably cost them a World Championship point.
That's a tough break for Alan McNish. He was having a great scrap with Felipe Massa. I was completely wrong-footed there, because I saw Mika Salo drive into his garage a few laps ago, retire from the race, but he's back in it again, down in 13th place.
Yeah, he's 2 laps behind, but quite clearly whatever it was he drove in for, they fixed quite quickly.
Very quickly.
It's unusual for a driver to bolt into the garage without you know, if he's not completely sure the car's finished. Ralf Schumacher's lead then over Jenson Button is 48.3 seconds. And here is the fight for 2nd place, just 0.6 of a second. Montoya is behind Button. We're heading for a Williams 1-2 here this afternoon.
Well, I don't know about that. Jenson's a real fighter. Don't forget, he's got a Williams contract for next year. He's out to prove that one of the 2 Williams drivers should be moved aside so that Sir Frank can take Button back. It's an awful lot to play for here, and not least honour. 12 laps to go here at Sepang, and this is the battle for 2nd place. Jenson Button in the Renault ahead of Juan Montoya in the Williams. Montoya looking to make it a Williams 1-2 at Sepang, and Louise Goodman can tell us, well, she's talking to Rubens Barrichello.
I am indeed, Rubens. Yet again, it's not been your weekend, has it?
Well, it's very unfortunate. I mean, it was a hard work out there, and I was trying the best I could. It was the tires were holding up together, but at that pace it was very difficult to keep on going on Williams' pace. But it's unfortunate to have to drop out.
And Montoya then closing in. He's clearly got a much faster car under braking, and that is good news when you want to overtake somebody, isn't it? He's got good straight line speed and good braking potential in that Williams. Button is not going to give in easily. Here's an interesting situation. The first 3 drivers in this race are all contracted to Williams. Button, of course, has a Williams contract, is racing at Renault, was Benetton, under loan, if you like, and Ralf Schumacher leads. Jenson Button 49 seconds behind in 2nd place, and Montoya just a few metres behind that in 3rd. Michael Schumacher's 20 seconds behind this pair in 4th place.
Yes, Button's been being paid $750,000 a year, is my understanding, not to drive for Williams for the last 2 seasons. He's been farmed out to the Benetton team. Now Renault, as you can see, he's made a slight mistake there, and Montoya has allowed himself to get much closer. We've got just 11 laps left here at Sepang, and Button has really got to hang on for all he's worth. If he can prove to Sir Frank Williams that he's the man that should slide into that team instead of either Montoya or Ralf Schumacher. Not an easy sell, that really, is it?
No, it's not. But he's keeping his head in this situation. I mean, with Ralf Schumacher and Montoya going so well, it's going to be tough for Jensen. But he may say, hey, who cares? Look, I've got a pretty good car. And look how close Montoya is. We know he's supersonic under braking. And well done, Jensen. He's given him a bit of space, but not too much. Hang on in on the apex, but brake a bit in the middle, slow him down. Nicely done, very nicely done. And put him out of rhythm, otherwise he'll nail you into turn 4. It's such a small braking zone into 4. It'll be a good man who can do it, but Montoya is a good man, and he has done it. Look at that, very, very good driving from the pair of them. Yes, brilliant driving from both of them. And it just shows you when you've got a corner that goes one way, giving into a corner going the other, you can go round the outside, you can try it on, and look at the joy. There's Carolyn, who does the catering at the Williams team, and she's absolutely over the moon. They call him Monster, don't they, the Williams team? They call Juan Montoya the Monster. He certainly monstered Jensen Button there, and it'll be interesting to see if Button has any kind of reply. Should just point out to you that Alan McNish, who was running in 6th place, has had a very long pit stop. Some sort of problem with the tyres, we believe, from the Toyota team. The 2 cars came in very close together, the Salo and McNish, and it's now dropped him back behind Massa. Those 2 were having a great scrap. So, as you can see on your screens there, McNish now out of the points for Toyota, but very much up on the podium are these 2 drivers, Juan Montoya and Jensen Button. And, well, Frank Williams and Patrick Head are going to be delighted about the way they've turned this around this weekend, because it was looking very, very Ferrari oriented on qualifying day. Eventful race for Montoya. Remember, he tripped over Michael Schumacher in the first corner, Schumacher losing his wing, and the pair of them have made 3 stops this afternoon, both Montoya and Michael Schumacher. Montoya for a drive-through penalty and 2 scheduled stops, Michael Schumacher for a new nose and 2 scheduled stops now. Well, Montoya's really come back through the field, hasn't he? But he's still 51 seconds behind Ralf. You have to say, Ralf had the better strategy for the afternoon and kept his nose out of trouble. Yes, a big debate about whether to stop once or stop twice here at Sepang. Tyres are obviously a big issue, but Williams have got it very right today. And there are the boys who've carried it out. They can be very proud of themselves indeed. Very slick pit work. Good strategy, you have to say, devised by Sam Michael, who was hired at the beginning of last season by the Williams team from Jordan to oversee such things as race strategy, be in charge of all the engineering at the racetracks and at the test tracks. And he really has injected some nous and some street smarts into these Williams. They've always been brilliant at engineering, but they weren't always so good at the strategy, and they've definitely got it right today. I wonder if Ferrari will be taking their new car to Brazil now. I think this will certainly have a big impact on their thought process. We're hearing that the new Ferrari is at least a second a lap faster than the current 2001 hybrid that they're using. And on this afternoon's performance, we're going to Brazil, it's hot there normally anyway. You'd have to say this may spring them into running it a bit earlier than anticipated. Well, Rubens Barrichello said before this race that it was going to come down 70% of the outcome, he reckoned, was going to be about tyres. Well, he probably didn't bargain for a Montoya-Schumacher collision at the first corner, but even that put to one side, it really has been a good advert for Michelin tyres today. 1 and 2 and 3 they're running. Michael Schumacher on the Bridgestones is 4th and really not able to make much of an impression on the top 3. He's 71 seconds still behind his brother, who leads this race, and that's where more or less where he's been for the last 10 laps or so. I wish I'd taken a tenner with you, Martin, on him winning this race earlier when he took his nose off, but Heidfeld is 5th and Massa 6th, so solid drives from the 2 Sauber boys there, both using the Bridgestone tyres. Yes, Michael, you're seeing him now, just didn't put on the pace we expected for the big charge back, did he? He's had a fairly lacklustre afternoon, actually, since that first corner incident. We don't know if the tracking is out on the front steering geometry or whatever, or it does appear that, of course, that the Williams were just plain faster. But both Saubers then in 5th and 6th place, so they're in a point scoring situation. McNish outside of the top 6 after that long pit stop where they failed to find his right front wheel, from what I can work out, and that's put him out of the World Championship points, and that's hard luck for McNish. You know, to get a World Championship point in your second ever Grand Prix would be something very special, but unless somebody else has a mechanical failure in front of him, it's not going to happen. Salo actually rejoined the race. We saw him go in the second Toyota. That's Salo joining the race yet again.
In the low 1:39 bracket. This is the 47th lap. Temperature, well, it's 32 degrees in the shade. The track temperature is 39. I imagine the temperature inside those cockpits is pretty hot. Many of them don't have any kind of ventilation bringing air into the car. I know the Williams certainly doesn't, and it's very, very torrid conditions for them to be driving in the hottest and longest race of the year. And they're still driving at the same pace as they were in the early stages. Great testament to their fitness.
Both the Jordans are running with shamrocks on them. It's St Patrick's Day, but Eddie Jordan will be ruining the fact that Sato ran into the back of Fisichella, because this is a day when he could have scored some World Championship points, no doubt about it. He certainly would have been in with a shout of a fifth or sixth, which they so badly need in the Jordan team. They seem to have a reasonable package. Both BAR and Jordan moaning a bit about the lack of Honda power at this time. Whether that's true or not, we don't know, but certainly both teams pretty consistent on that.
It's leaving the door open for both Renault and Sauber to come through. That's the battle, in fact, for fourth place in the championship. And at the moment, Renault looking pretty good with Button on a podium position. Never been on the podium, Jenson Button, and he's got just 9 laps remaining to see whether he can stay. His best position ever, fourth at Hockenheim for Williams. We're riding on board with Nick Heidfeld, who's done very well indeed today for Sauber, currently fifth. He had a podium last year at Brazil, but it's going to be a long way for him to get one here today.
Heidfeld was the man that caused the secondary accident in Melbourne. If you watch it closely, he's the one that piled in, came off the grass and piled in. You're on board with him through turn 14. That long straight then. He needs to be on the right-hand side at the end, of course, for what is now becoming a nice grippy. Look at the rubber laid down as the tyres working overtime to slow these projectiles down from 190 down to about 70 miles an hour. Car's working well, isn't it? Over the hatch grid placings, bring it to the left, and he'll brake about 70 metres in race trim before that first corner.
Michael Schumacher was saying in a press conference on Thursday that when it's really hot here, he likes to drive in the shadows. Anything just to make it a little bit cooler in the cockpit. We've got just 8 laps to go here at Sepang. Ralf Schumacher leads from 1 Montoya. Buttons is third. Michael Schumacher is fourth. Fifth is Heidfeld, and sixth still is Felipe Massa. Board again then with Nick Heidfeld. A lot of supporters for this team, sponsored by the local oil company. Drawn a lot of Malaysian money into Formula One, the Sauber team have, over the last few years, and Malaysians got plenty to shout about, really. They've got a driver in the field, they've got sponsors, big multinational companies based here in Malaysia, competing at the top level of Formula One. It says an awful lot, I think, for this country that it's managed to get itself involved really in the world's most technologically advanced and lucrative sport.
And put this much money into this wonderful facility, so yeah, no doubt about it. It's good to have them in Formula One. Ferrari mechanics, no more scheduled work to do for the afternoon until the checkered flag, then they've got to pack everything away and get it ready to go off to Brazil. But, nothing to do, they hope, between now and that flag falling. Massa, 6th place. He's 55 seconds behind teammate Heidfeld, but no threat from behind. 22 seconds behind him is Alan McNish, 7th place man. 26 seconds behind him is Villeneuve in 8th. Sato's 9th in the Jordan De La Rosa, in the Jaguar 10th. Frentzen in the Arab Stream have a long pit stop early in the day. It's 11th. Salo been in 4 times. Traction control problems apparently in 12th. Fisichella trundling around at the back in, unlucky for some, 13. Williams then lapping Felipe Massa. They go through 190 miles an hour down to turn 15, the scene of a lot of action and overtaking this afternoon.
Seven laps to go of the Malaysian Grand Prix of 2002. You're looking at Ralf Schumacher, who's hoping to win his 4th Grand Prix of his reasonably long career. He's 51 seconds ahead of his teammate Juan Montoya, and Jenson Button is heading for his first podium finish and Renault's first in, well, 4 years, in fact, 5 years for Renault in 3rd place. Michael Schumacher down in 4th. And it is not the race order that we had expected, certainly after qualifying. From the start, Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya got tangled in the first corner. Schumacher lost his front wing. Montoya was adjudged to have caused the incident and was given a drive through the pits penalty. Michael Schumacher dropped down to 19th place.
The race settled into a pattern then, but it was clear that the Ralf Schumacher was running a lot of fuel, and inevitably Barrichello pitted early from the lead. Schumacher took over, appeared to easily have the pace, and the one-stoppers yet again, like for example Button, who's currently in 3rd, it's paid off for them. We saw Trulli drop out with technical problems early on. Panis stopped on the track. Coulthard recovered to the pits, but with a power loss. And Bernoldi off the racetrack. Raikkonen with an apparent blown engine. Alex Young stopped in the first sector. Irvine tripped over the back of Alex Young, and probably that's why Young stopped, lost his front nose and did some other damage. Webber stopped out in the gravel. Barrichello then, the other retiree, with a failed engine, his 2nd of the weekend in the Ferrari. Lots of action. McNish was 6th, lost time with a very long pit stop where they couldn't find his right front wheel. Button has put in a great performance here and a well-deserved 3rd place. We saw an exciting battle between him and Montoya. Montoya had the car and the confidence to nail him and take over, then 2nd place.
Yes, this will be a great fillip indeed for Jenson Button. He had a terrible time with the Benetton team last year after making such an explosive debut with Williams the year before. He was farmed out to Benetton and really struggled to match the pace of his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella. But this year, now the team's become Renault, and he is teammates to Jarno Trulli. And certainly he's got the upper hand over Trulli this weekend. Trulli was unlucky not to go too far in this race, retired very early on. But Jenson Button has put his marker down. He's back, no doubt about that. And so are Williams BMW. 1 and 2 at the moment with just 3 laps to go.
Yes, Button hanging around just 5.3 seconds behind this man, and if Button gets on the podium, as Renault, the last time Renault in their own right were on the podium was in San Marino back in 1985, some 17 years ago, with Patrick Tambay, so I think they'll be pretty delighted as well. But Michelin then are the first 3 runners this afternoon, so as predicted by many people prior to this race, the hot conditions really do suit their tyres.
Certainly seems to be the case. Alan McNish just struggling to get his car into the corner there. He must be ruining that pit stop foul up. You have to expect it, I suppose, with a new team. Toyota still finding their way in Formula One, still getting together and gelling as a team, and it really was a mix-up that meant they didn't have enough tyres for him. I mean, it can happen to the most experienced team. It happened to Ferrari, didn't it? Several times. We remember Eddie Irvine at a crucial race at the Nürburgring a few years ago, unable to get enough wheels on his wagon.
I think what threw the spanner in the works was one of Salo's 4 stops this afternoon was just prior to McNish arriving in the zone, and quite clearly they hadn't got his tyres ready. You got to hope that Salo doesn't have McNish's tyres on, because that's illegal. Anyway, they'll get thrown out for that. But Salo not in a point-scoring position in any event. But hopefully the wheel they did eventually find for the front of Alan's car was one of his batch, one of his allocation for the weekend.
Just looking at who else is still running, you can see Jacques Villeneuve. He'll give the BAR boys something to smile about. He's still on the track. They haven't got much speed, but at least they have some reliability from the looks of things. In 8th place, Takuma Sato. Well, there'll be a serious debrief back at Jordan's headquarters at Silverstone after this race. Takuma Sato, the new boy in the team, crashed into the back of his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella early on, and with the pace that Fisichella has shown throughout this weekend, it really is easy to imagine that he would have got some points today, perhaps 1 or even 2 points to open Jordan's account for the 2002 season. De La Rosa's still going as well in 10th for Jaguar, and they're going to be analysing after this in an important test next week in Spain whether or not to bring last year's Jaguar out to Brazil or even Imola, because they suspect it might be faster than the car they're racing here this weekend. Heinz-Harald Frentzen still going in the Arrows in 11th. Mika Salo is down in 12th place in the Toyota. And there is the Williams mechanics. They've been here many, many times before. Williams have won a lot of Grand Prix, well over 100 Grand Prix, but haven't yet found the winning habit for a few years. 4 victories last season. Is this going to be the first of the 2002 season? And how many more to come? And what does he do for the championship? Well, it blows it wide open, doesn't it? Michael Schumacher will pick up 3 points today if he carries on in 4th place. He'll still lead the championship with 13, but Ralf Schumacher will be right there with 10 points in 3rd place, and just ahead of him will be Juan Montoya with 2 second places so far. So it'll be Michael 13, Juan 12, and Ralph 10. It's a bit like the Premiership. It's very tight, very, very tight at the top.
Williams have won 108 Grand Prix. They used to be neck and neck for a while with Ferrari and McLaren, but they had a bit of a dull period, didn't they? Ferrari won 145 Grand Prix, McLaren 134, Williams to date 108, but it very much looks like it's going to become 109 for the Williams team, and this of course will be Ralf Schumacher's 4th Grand Prix victory, providing he can finish the next 3 laps.
Lovely overhead shot there of this Williams BMW. And BMW have done fantastically well since coming in to Grand Prix racing at the start of the 2000 season. Widely considered to have the most powerful engine in Formula One, and it's certainly hustled this car along very nicely throughout the weekend. And credit also to the engineers, because they've had to find speed from this car. It was not a match for the Ferrari in the early running of the weekend, and by the time qualifying came around, both Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya had found a lot from it. So clocking down the laps now, 2 more to go, Martin, and we'll have to ask you, this is not going to be an easy one this year, this race, the driver of the day. We've had fantastic performances, obviously, from Ralf Schumacher, leading the race, been very strong throughout, helped by his team. Juan Montoya's done very well after his early incidents to get himself up into 2nd place. And Jenson Button, his first podium in a Renault, racing against much stronger teams. But who would you tip?
You're right, it's a very close call between the 3 men who are currently look like they're going to be standing on the podium. You've got to go for Ralf. I think he would have won this race anyway, regardless of Montoya's problems, because he's 47 seconds ahead. Montoya did not lose 47 seconds in my view. Ralf, I think, had the right strategy, drove sensibly, kept it on the road, kept out of trouble, and he would have to be my driver of the day. Jenson Button's done a fabulous job, but I think you'd really have to say Ralph's been supreme.
I wouldn't argue with that. Martin Brundle's driver today then, Ralf Schumacher, and no doubt we'll see plenty more of those as the season goes on. Just looking at the notes here from this race, 34 seconds in fact was how much time Juan Montoya lost as a result of that incident. So he's 45 seconds behind Ralf, so you're absolutely right. It probably would have been Ralph's day, but you never know how unsettling something like that could be for a driver, I guess.
It's true, and plus of course he then has to come through the traffic, but I still think Ralf had the best strategy of the afternoon of the 2 Williams drivers. And you know, at the end of the day, he didn't trip over anybody in the first corner. That's the long and the short of it. You can, if only, all day long, but Montoya ended up, for whatever reason, getting a penalty.
There he is, though, just heading into the very closing stages of this race. Juan Montoya not been on terms with his teammate Ralf Schumacher here, but he's still slightly ahead of him in the championship. It's going to be Ralf's 4th Grand Prix victory, his 15th visit to the Formula One podium in his career. We're on the final lap now. This has been an emotional day for the Williams team for sure.
Absolutely, and they'll need to cut to the other Williams anytime soon, because he's going to be winning the race. So we're watching second place man here, Montoya. Ralf has started his final tour. Montoya about to do the same, so that's the distance there behind. Montoya crosses the line. Ralf, of course, is some 43 seconds further around this final tour.
Both the Saubers going to score points today then. 3 points for the Sauber team as they aim to try and keep themselves 4th in the championship. Jenson Button is going to score 4 very valuable points for himself and for the Renault team with his podium finish in 3rd place. We're waiting to see Ralf Schumacher. Hopefully we'll pick him up. Nice aerial shot there of the Williams BMW.
Here's a scrap I hadn't seen. Button's had a very slow lap, and Michael Schumacher just 1.3 seconds behind him. So Michael Schumacher may just be about to snatch that podium position away from Jenson Button. There's Ralf then, heading towards the final corner of the final lap, and we think Michael Schumacher has passed an ailing Jenson Button and will jump on the podium. Is he the luckiest man or what?
Ralf Schumacher, though, wins the Malaysian Grand Prix. A fantastic victory for Williams, for BMW and for Ralf Schumacher. His 4th career win, his 1st of the 2002 season. He's going to lead home his teammate Juan Montoya in 2nd place. But Jenson Button is in trouble. He's in big trouble. He's about to be passed for 4th place by Nick Heidfeld. What a heartbreak for the Englishman. We're still looking at Ralf Schumacher, but Michael Schumacher has passed Button, and now the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld looks, I believe, I'm told he's going past as well. It's we're not seeing it, I'm afraid, but Jenson Button in the course of this final lap has gone from a podium place in 3rd as Montoya crosses the line. Juan Montoya makes it a Williams 1-2, and a very emotional day indeed for the Williams BMW team. They are definitely in the running for this championship, but we believe that Schumacher is going to nick the Bears Button now, and there is the Sauber, you can see, and that's the Sauber of Massa. So in fact Button is going to finish in 6th place. What heartbreak for him and for Renault. Oh my goodness.
And where's McNish in the Toyota? Is he anywhere near to be able to threaten Button? No, he's not.
Oh.
So Button goes, Massa was a lap behind, so Button goes over 4th. Heidfeld did not pass him. Massa was in being lapped, so Button cruises just over the line. Michael Schumacher then stands on the podium.
His 99th career podium, Michael Schumacher, so 1 more and he hits the ton. I'm sorry I didn't see the computer reading saying that Button was going to be 4th. I realised that the 2 Saubers were a lap down, but that's the move. That is where Michael Schumacher put the move on Jenson Button that nicked that podium place. And, well, Button, as you say, managed to stay in front of the 2 Saubers because they were, in fact, a lap down.
Wonder if he was short of fuel. They do cut it very fine. You wonder if he was a bit short of fuel on that last lap. Maybe he had a technical problem. Obviously, he had nothing to fight with. He had no tools to fight Michael Schumacher with. He lost 9 seconds on the last lap, Jenson Button, and 5 seconds the lap before that. So, what a disaster. Still, no podium for Jenson Button.
All that effort, all that hard work in these incredible temperatures, but a very, very happy little area, VIP sponsor area there above the Williams garage. There's the crowd, and Ted Kravitz has got Patrick Head, the technical director of the Williams team, who must be a very happy man today.
Patrick, well done. James says you must be a very happy man. I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, very pleased. I mean, the team's done a fantastic job over the winter, working very hard, the whole team at the circuit and back at base. And the drivers, BMW, Michelin, they've all worked bloody hard. So, but we've got a long season ahead anyway.
Do you think Juan's penalty was fair?
I think we'll be having a talk about that with people behind the scenes, but I think it was a bit hard when you compare it with some other similar occasions. Yeah.
But a great win for Ralf. All credit to him. It was a great strategy and he made it pay.
He was just very quick, and he was so quick. We said, well, one-stop strategy is what he can do, and he was very fast. Yeah.
Well done, Patrick.
Well done indeed, Patrick. as Ralf Schumacher takes the plaudits of the team. You saw Willy Weber there with the beard, the silver-bearded man. That's the manager of both Ralf and Michael Schumacher. Mr. 20% they call him, and well, he's got a fair chance of being the manager of the world champion this year, hasn't he? There's the non-classified runners. There's poor old Jenson Button coming in, and Juan Montoya in second place. Look at those tyres. There isn't much grip left on the front of those tyres, is there?
That's a slick. Yeah, that's a complete slick. No grooves in that one at all. There'll be a bit of controversy about that. I wouldn't be at all surprised. And that man now second in the World Championship with 12 points. There's the point situation. Michael Schumacher leads the World Championship with 14, Montoya 12, Ralf Schumacher 10, and Louise is in the pits.
Yeah, I'm stood here with Pat Simmons. Pat, my heart goes out to you. You fell off that podium on the last lap, really, didn't you? What went wrong?
Well, a couple of laps before the end, Jensen started experiencing a problem. We can see on telemetry that the roll stiffness distribution has gone to a place where it shouldn't be. At the moment I'd suspect maybe a broken anti-roll bar, something like that, but very, very disappointing after such a good race.
I was going to say, I mean, you must be absolutely gutted. You've still, despite the fact that you've still got points from that race.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, it's great to get on the podium. You feel you've done a good job then, and to lose it so late, it's galling.
Bad luck to you all.
Pat Simmons, the engineering director of the Renault team, explaining that he thinks there was some kind of suspension failure that made Jensen's car very, very difficult. The roll centre he's talking about is the distribution of the weight, particularly as it's going around corners, so that appears to be... I'm surprised he lost that much speed, I have to say, with a roll bar braking. Jensen Button, normally you wouldn't lose quite that much speed. They may find something else when they pull it apart.
Well, we've seen a chink in Ferrari's reliability armour today, haven't we? Rubens Barrichello had an engine failure and dropped out of the race. But nevertheless, Ferrari have now gone 37 straight races getting a car onto the podium, and that is a really tremendous situation, isn't it? Just looking now at a melt of pictures of the race. Martin, tell me, what do you think this says? The pendulum's very much swung now. In Australia it was all about Ferrari. Here it's been all about Williams BMW.
You're just seeing a replay there of that first corner incident, and it's so difficult from that shot to understand what Montoya did wrong. I understand what Patrick Head is saying to us, that there'll be a bit of an inquest on that. Of course, the penalty's already been paid. They got the drive through the pits at 120 kilometres per hour. It's a long pit lane here, something approaching 400 metres. Williams now lead the World Championship, 22 points to Ferrari's 14 points. The pendulum has swung in their favour, and of course they've been developing their new car as well. That's important. Ferrari now, I think, will be forced to rush their new car out, probably for Brazil after the performance today. Podium procedure is very much being readied, and I wonder if we're going to hear any more about those front Michelins that appear to have no grooves. The regulations say they must start with grooves, they must have grooves when they're new. There's no system at this time for measuring them at the end of a Grand Prix or when they're taken off through the pit stop. It would be very difficult to measure them after a pit stop, and we're into the anthems.
presented to him by the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Right Honourable Dato Abdullah bin Ahmad Badawi. Well done, Ralph. And to the winning constructor, Williams Grand Prix, BMW, represented by Dickie Stanford. The trophy presented by the President of Petronas, Tan Sri Dato Hassan Marikam. And to the second place driver, Juan Pablo Montoya, the trophy presented by the Minister of Youth and Sports of Malaysia, the Honourable Dato Hish Uddin bin Tun Hussein. And to the third place driver, Michael Schumacher, the trophy presented by the Chairman of the Automobile Association of Malaysia, H.H. Tunku Muzaffar. Well done, gentlemen. And now, the champagne!
Points in the Australian Grand Prix. Ralf Schumacher first, second for Williams BMW, Juan Pablo Montoya, and third for Ferrari, Michael Schumacher. Ralph, that was an absolutely masterful race. Once it was established that Rubens was on a two-stop strategy, you seemed to put not one foot wrong. almost the perfect race for you?
It was a perfect race, but the team did a fantastic job. The car was just there. It was perfect the whole race, especially in the second stint where even more rubber was on the circuit. It was just an easy game. I'm amazed how quick the car was today. I can't still believe it, to be honest. It's all down to the team, I must say.
Now, a very hot race today for all of you. Looking at your tyres when they came in, a lot of tyres were coming in almost slick. Did that really put the handling off, and did it in fact concern you that maybe they were wearing even more than you expected?
Well, we were worried about the tyre wear before the beginning of this weekend, and we had a very high tyre wear. And towards the end of the stint, I always gone a bit off, but it was never a problem because the car was so well balanced, it did take it.
Thank you. Very well done today, Ralph. Thanks. Juan Pablo, you had much more incident in the race than you wanted, starting at the first corner. Talk us through that, and also what were you waving to Michael afterwards as you were coming back round to both make your first pit stops?
Well, I'll be honest. When we had this tire, came around the outside of Michael because he moved to the right, and we got to the corner. I gave him enough room. I talked to him already. He said he had a bit of understeer, and he touched me, and that was it. For me, it was a race incident. I think for him it was the same. And I was a bit pissed off because I saw he understeer off into me, so that's why I went like that to him. But that was it. It was a bit frustrating because the car was very good. I did fastest lap of the race, and I think the strategy I was in, it wouldn't work from where I was.
Obviously, you were called in for the first driver to receive a drive-through penalty rather than the stop-go. Do you think that was really unfair? You did end up at the end of the day with more points than Michael, but what did you think about the drive-through?
But I think it was very unfair because, I gave him room. He understeered a bit off. He touched me. That was it. I kept, it's racing incidents that, I think after what happened in the first race, they went a bit extreme, and I had to pay for it. I think the stewards didn't want to go. Everybody saying, "Oh, they should have done something." They didn't, I think.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. Michael, could you describe how you saw the first corner incident? Did you simply understeer into Juan Pablo, or did he not leave you enough space?
You can see it from two ways. Obviously, if he would have opened more, we wouldn't have touched, but he wasn't willing to do this, so there wasn't any room for me, so we touched. I didn't see a drama in that. It was a shame that I lost my front wing and had to come in for a pit stop. I lost a lot of time, obviously, for that lap, plus the pit stop. But anyway, it was an exciting race in the end.
Do you think the penalty that Juan Pablo got was fair? You also ended up coming through the field doing a lot of overtaking, but do you think maybe he was dealt with quite harshly today?
Honestly, to be honest, yes, because I would think we have seen situations far more extreme where nothing has happened, and today a little touch, something was done. We don't seem to have a very consistent situation. That's something we maybe all together want to improve in future.
Michael, thank you. Ralph, back to you. Hot conditions here. The next race is in Brazil, also likely to be hot. How confident are you?
Well, we should have all the confidence. Last year we were stronger than Ferrari there. It was very bad luck that Juan was on winning the race before someone crashed into him. So I think we can be very confident to be on the podium again and to give Michael and Rubens a hard time there.
We'll see. Thank you very much. And now in your own languages, starting with Ralph, please.
Ja, heute war einfach ein hervorragender Tag im Gegensatz zu gestern. Heute lief einfach alles perfekt, mit ein bisschen Glück natürlich. Leider Gottes war zwar mein Bruder in dem Startkrieg drin verwickelt, aber hat mir natürlich geholfen. Also hat er es jetzt zurückgezahlt, letztes Mal und dieses Mal. Aber das Auto war wirklich perfekt. Ich kann nur einen Dank ans Team geben. Alles hat gehalten. Reifen waren super heute. Ja, war einfach mein Tag heute. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Ralph. Juan Pablo?
Pues pienso que fue una carrera bastante buena después del incidente con Michael en la primera curva. Lastimosamente me dieron una penalización que me pareció un poco injusta, pero toca pagar por, ¿me entiendes? Ya está la penalización, ya en el momento no hay nada que hacer de todas maneras. Después de haber perdido tanto, ¿me entiendes? Tanto campo en la pista, no había mucho más que hacer, ¿me entiendes? El segundo era lo mejor que se podía llegar a hacer.
Juan Pablo, thank you. Michael?
Alles in allem, glaube ich, nach dem, was in der ersten Runde passiert ist, so ist der Rennsport manchmal. Und insofern muss man sagen, haben wir immer noch ein gutes Rennen nach Hause gefahren. Vielleicht ein bisschen glücklich zum Schluss, dass ich in der letzten Runde den Button neu überholen konnte, der irgendwelche technischen Probleme hatte. weil der Vorsprung war eigentlich zu groß, als dass ich das in den letzten Runden nochmal wettmachen konnte. Allerdings muss ich sagen, habe ich im Rennen nie aufgegeben. Ich habe das komplette Rennen 100% gegeben und habe immer auf meine Chance gehofft und das hat sich heute ausgezahlt. Das Auto hat sehr gut gehalten. Sorry für meinen Teamkollegen, der leider durch einen Motorschaden ausgefallen ist. Aber alles in allem muss man sagen, haben wir mit dem alten Auto 14 Punkte geholt. Das ist weitaus mehr, als wir uns zugetraut hatten, bevor wir die Entscheidung getroffen haben. Und insofern sind wir glücklich und irgendwann kommt ja jetzt bald mal das neue Auto. Und ich denke mal, dann wird auch wieder ein bisschen was vorwärts gehen. Danke.
Thank you, Michael.